All right, testing, 1, 2. Give me a moment. Let me just see. Let me work on this. Let me just see. Let me work on this. Let me just see. Let me work on this. Let me just see. All right, so we're going to be discussing, or not we necessarily, me. I'm going to be discussing the concept of Khepra. I read a paper. Actually, at the moment, I don't even remember the name of the paper. It's been so long ago. I've had this presentation for months, and I haven't done it because I haven't felt like I was ready. But I'm just doing it now. To get it out of the way, one, and to move the conversation forward, and then just to have it done, just so I can have it done, right? So the paper was on the concept of Khepra and evolution in Kemetic society, and it was contrasting or comparing this concept even with the Paut Neteru and the Tree of Life in the common Kemetic movements, right? So I read the paper, and then this is my take on the paper, so to speak, and my takeaways and my summary of its understanding, right? So the concept here, the concept of Khepra, is a transformative concept. It's an evolving concept and principle in creation, right? And that makes it different from the Western models of creation, which lacks holism, right? It's not holistic in its presentation on how creation came about, right? And so it critiques this. The paper critiqued Eurocentric approaches, and it talked about the need for a more integrated understanding of reality, right? So and then further on in the paper, it was talking about Western religious and philosophical models. Give me a second, and I'll pull the paper up. Actually, give me a moment. Let me see something here. Let me just pull the paper up, just so you all can see what it was. So because it had. This is going to take a second. This has got me on pause. But you are right. I need to go ahead and just say where I got the paper from. Dang, this is taking me. Yeah, okay. I'll definitely do that. Hold up, just let me find it. It's in the archives. It's in the archives. Like I said, yeah, I'm trying to find the joint. It's been a minute since I looked it up, since I had it. PowerPoints. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. See, I know I had a continuity of Kemetic thought. Did I just not save it on the computer? It's not making any sense. All right. Bonacci. It's not this one. Oh, there it goes. All right. So I got it up. So I'm gonna screen share the paper. You all can go ahead and stop that. Share screen. All right. So this is the paper that I looked at, right? So this is it. It's by Seba Akindi Bonacci Montgomery, right? So I took his paper, I analyzed it, I looked at it, and then I came up with my understanding on it. All right, but I got it off of academia.edu if you want to just get it yourself after, and then definitely let me know how I did on the presentation. But this is where this presentation comes out of. Okay. I don't really want to read the paper. I mean, paragraph by paragraph, although, it'd be kind of like what's going to go on here. But, go ahead and get it and check it out. You know what I'm saying? And see what it is. All right. So back to what I was doing on that level. Let me stop that share. Let me go to present. Let me go back to what I had. Man, I even closed it out. Hold on a second. Give me a moment. All right, there it goes. All right, boom. Back in the building with the presentation. And boom, boom, boom. Let's see if everything is straight. All right. So the paper, it talks about, how in the Western spiritual mind, there's a fragmentation of reality into like opposites, right? And then that's what it was discussing, and then it compared that to the Kemetic holistic worldview, which talked about a unified cyclical process, right? And so that's kind of what the document was challenging, right? That's what the document was approaching. The idea of a creator as separate from creation versus involved in creation, right? And it was mostly from my analysis of it, it was mostly talking about the dominant exoteric presentation, literal presentation of Judaism, Christianity as literal structures, not the esoteric, Christian, esoteric Judaism, Kabbalistic view from my analysis. But, we can go into that. Go ahead, read the paper. We can get into it, right? So, but what it was arguing was Western religious and scientific models, they fail. They really fail in the fact that they ignore consciousness and emotions, right? And then so that's what he was saying by the lack of their inclusion. So the lack of understanding its inclusion, that's where they fail in, and it suggests that it's not practical, and it doesn't give you really any deep insights into creation. And then that's versus the Kemetic perspective, right, where everything is integrated and holistic. And we all know that that's kind of the word. I don't even know if that's now. That might even be old. That's like 10 years old, being holistic living and meditation. That's what my thing is. That's what my thing has always been, right? So from a Kemetic perspective, evolution is different than what is looked at in the West, right? Evolution emphasizes the cyclical, multidimensional model with change, and it's not a linear progression. You know what I'm saying? It's not linear from simple to complex forms. That's what evolution, it's comparing that, right? Khepra has a model of evolution is presented has a natural law that governs transformation. So looking at evolution as transformation in all aspects of transformation, adaptation, right? And then so versus like the Western understanding of evolution implying hierarchical development. Well, you know, that's why so many people fight against evolution per se, right? So with the idea of Khepra and the understanding of Khepra, Khepra focuses on balance and renewal, right? And it doesn't have any judgment about superiority, you know. And then it emphasizes the continuous nature of evolution, the continuous cyclical nature of evolution, right? So, and you get this perspective in the book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and the treaties of the hidden regions. They provide this understanding of Khepra, right? These texts, right? They emphasize or they talk about transformation has essential transformation, adaptation, you know, has these are essential components to creation. And we even know that in our own lives, like we have to transform and adapt to the changing times. So we have to Khepra in our own lives continuously, right? And then this concept is portrayed as Ra, which is like a symbol of continuous and cyclical creation and transformation. And so he talks about that's not like other creation myths, you know, that's where hierarchy is implied. You know, in the Kemetic framework, there's a focus on the interconnected process where existence is a perpetual renewal and transformation, right? It highlights Kepra's role in plurality, right, in multidimensionality, right, of existence. And we know that, you know, we exist as multi-dimensional beings, you know, and what that means on being a multi-dimensional being is you are a unified whole. You know what I'm saying? Like you walk around with your thoughts, your emotions, your past, and your hopes for your future is the multi-dimensionality of your essence of who you are, right? And this is what it's talking about when he talks about Khepra, right? This and it also talks about how life forms are interconnected. Each life form is dependent upon the other, and all beings originate from a unified source. Like this first couple of slides is just kind of the presentation on it, right? And it talks, and so this perspective aligns with natural cycles, right? And then once again, it's contrasted to like the Western Abrahamic worldview that has this hierarchy type of arrangement, right? So now Ra's nightly journey through the Duat, that emphasizes symbolic, you know, its symbolic function has a metaphor for transformation, right? Renewal and the triumph of light over darkness. It's the sun, right? The sun's cycle serves, the sun cycle is a representation of continuous creation and rebirth, a cycle of creation and rebirth, a cycle of creation and destruction, right? And that goes right along with natural patterns that we see in nature, right? We see this cycle of death and rebirth. We're in a rebirth cycle now. We're in a rebirth cycle now, right? And that this mirrors life's perpetual transition. So Ra is also a transformative force that represents continuous manifestation in new forms of existence, right? It embodies it's self-motivated and internal and has an internal, you know, nature of transformation. So it's an indication that transformation is implicit in creation, right? Transformation, adaptation is implicit in creation, right? Within the Kemetic view of creation, existence is understood as a cyclical, self-contained process. There's no need for an external creator. There's intelligence is inherent inside existence itself. You know, so creation emerges. Our creation comes from within and is governed by the principles inherent inside creation itself. Now, the concept of noon, this is like a non-physical state that all forms of existence originates from, right? With creation inside the noon is understood as a conceptual process, right? And that is driven by internal consciousness and energy, emotions, rather than external forces. There's nothing sitting outside the noon to create the noon. The noon is the existence and the all and be all of all that is, was, and ever shall be, right? Creation is self-initiated, right? And it comes from the intellect, the emotions, and insight. That's what creation is. Within the primordial state of noon, Khepra operates to bring about physical existence, right? And it integrates emotional and intellectual, it integrates the emotions and the mind, right? And it connects human experience with universal principles, right? To provide a more holistic understanding of the universe. And then the movement from the non-physical to the physical is an extension of existence itself, right? And it connects the gap between potential and the tangible, the possible and the real, right? And then the emotions and the intellect are interconnected forces. That the emotion and the intellect drive this function, right? And there is a unity in process, and the essence is inherent, this connection between creation and existence, right? Once again, it's an integrated holistic process, right? Physical existence is a stage in the ongoing cycle of transformation with Khepra, right? Khepra symbolizing the seed that contains all probabilities, all possibilities. That's what Khepra is. Creation is understood as the transformation of archetypes, right? Forms, archetypes into tangible forms. Plato talked about forms, forms of existence. Things are forms existing in existence, right? And then that reinforces this idea of this interconnection between nature, right? Then this view of, but when we have this type of view, when we have this type of perspective, there's no need for hierarchical differences, right? There's an integration, there's a harmony within this worldview, right? Creation is ongoing. It's an ongoing process of transformation. It's not a single event that occurred in the times past. It's ongoing. It's continuous. Adaptation is continuous, and we know that is continuous, right? And so, and it's different than this one-time act, far in distant times past, right? Right, and then done by some sort of separate creator, right? It denies and rejects and doesn't even incorporate something like a hierarchy or hierarchical separations. It emphasizes continuity and integration, right? And this is a worldview that is steeped in what we can see, what you see in nature. You see interdependence, you see holism, you see connections between nature, inside nature, right? That is the Kemetic understanding. That is Khepra, right? And intelligence and emotion, right? Intelligence and emotion are they're vital to the process of creation and transformation. And there's a unity of intellect and emotion. The intellect and the mind combine in order to create these transformational processes, right? So your daily human experiences, like waking, and these are symbolic reenactments of creation. In one of my in another presentation I'm going to discuss later on, there's a connection between the opening of the mouth process and birth into the human physical realm. And this is one connection that we're looking at. Like, when the ancients buried people in the fetal position, it was to represent, going into the afterlife as a child. As you come into the physical world in that position, you go out into the spiritual world in that position. That's a theory, but it seems like that's what it was. And the opening of the mouth ceremony is done in such a way so that it gives you access to spiritual food. So it's got some backing on it. I'll go over that later in another presentation I put together in relationship to looking at the pyramid text. So that's going to be in my next pyramid text presentation, right? So the Kemetic worldview it's not mechanistic and it's not reductionist, right? It includes all aspects of nature and processes of life and consciousness, right? It's a holistic understanding of existence. And it's a perspective that highlights nature as an active, intelligent force rather than passive and inanimate, as if though it has no conscious existence in and of itself. There is consciousness within nature. Ra's daily rebirth that symbolizes the cyclical nature of existence, right? It reinforces this idea that transformation is an eternal and constant process, right? It's a continuous renewal that reflects this Kemetic view that life comes from ongoing cycles of regeneration, right? It emphasizes interconnectedness in all forms of existence, right? It doesn't view creation as a single event, but it sees existence as an ever evolving flow of transformation and rebirth. Creation is constant, is constantly creating. It never stops creating. Creating creates creation constantly, right? So now, consubstantiality, right? Consubstantiality with substance, right? That's what with substantiality, substance, with substance. It's a principle that says that all life forms are interconnected. All life forms come from a single source and has inherently and intrinsically inside of it, a unity. And so there is no understanding, once again, of hierarchy, right? It focuses on continuity and unity in the transformative process. It sees existence as an evolving and interconnected system where transformation and adaptation is inherent and self-sustaining process rather than a top-down act of creation by a singular external force, right? So the dung beetle serves as a powerful symbol, right? The dung beetle is a powerful symbol of intelligence in nature, right? With its ability to navigate using celestial bodies, a concept that is in tune with Kemetic symbolism, right? The connection talks about the ancient understanding of natural intelligence inside the cosmic order, right? Modern science even validates these Kemetic principles, and it recognizes that emotions and intellect are inherent in the transformation process, and they're universal attributes that can be observed across all life forms. All life forms have an intellect or an intelligence, and it's also stating that all life forms have emotions. Plants have emotions, grass has emotions, things have emotions. That's what is being implied in the paper, right? So, and this just really reinforces the interconnectedness of nature, right? The unity between, ancient wisdom, our ancient African wisdom, and scientific insights, right? Modern day scientists, see the dung beetle's navigation, right? And it supports the ancient Kemetic framework, which views transformation as an ongoing and interconnected process, right? By looking at these traditional perspectives and merging them with contemporary science, we can see how these similarities highlight, the timeless nature of the transformative process. It reinforces the idea that Kemetic wisdom, African wisdom, is what we see in the observable world, right? Once again, in the Kemetic view, creation is a continuous cyclical process where all forms of life are connected, right? It doesn't, this idea that there is a God that is above you and that there is another being that was the son of this God that is also above you that needs to come and save you from the creation of the creator. It's not there, right? It's not there in the Kemetic worldview, right? In the Kemetic worldview, all aspects of life are integrated, right? with a Kemetic understanding, which is a more holistic framework. It's a more holistic and practical approach to understanding the nature of reality. And it reinforces the idea that creation is an ongoing and self-sustaining, phenomena. Okay. That's what this is. That's what we're talking about here, right? So that was kind of my take on the paper. You know what I'm saying? Now, then this is me looking at the paper and comparing it to the Paut Neteru, the concept of the tree of life, right? So now, Khepra is all about creation, right? Being this ongoing, self-driven transformation from noon, right? But the Paut Neteru, the tree of life, it's a little different, right? And it begins with Amen, which represents undifferentiated whole, which is the noon, the ultimate source of everything. And the tree maps out the process of creation, showing how we go from unity to all the diverse forms we see. But it doesn't deny connectivity. That's the thing about it. The Paut Neteru, the tree of life, does not deny connectivity, although it talks about unity coming down into multiplicity. That doesn't mean it's a denial of unity. It just means it's an acknowledgement of the unity in the multiplicity, right? But they take different approaches. Whereas Khepra focuses on transformation in the fluid nature of existence, the tree of life is a more structured pathway. It's a more clear and structured pathway, right? So now Khepra says there's no need for a creator. Instead, creation just naturally evolves out of the noon, which is the primordial state of all that exists, right? But the tree of life also moves away from the idea of anthropomorphic gods, and it presents Amen as this impersonal source from which all divine emanation begins. Now, emanationism is another way to talk about transformation. Emanation, and we'll discuss how that looks, as the presentation moves forward, right? It presents Amen as this impersonal source in which all divine emanation begins. Both systems completely skip the human idea of deity, and instead they focus on creation as an intrinsic process, and then something that just flows naturally without needing a creator figure to make it happen. So in Khepra, right, emotions and consciousness are seen as the key driving forces of transformation, right? This is what Khepra is. They're just naturally a part of the process and blend together seamlessly. Now, in the tree of life, things have more structure. Consciousness, represented by Jehuti, and emotions by Neteru, they're treated as distinct spheres, interlocked and interchanged with another, connected with one another, but treated as distinct, regions, right? Both are crucial, though, for creation and spiritual growth. That's what's not understood here. Both consciousness and emotional intelligence are crucial for spiritual growth and development. I think that's one thing that was kind of missed, right? But both systems highlight how important they are, but they handle them differently. Khepra is more fluid, while the tree of life is like a more organized, layered approach, right? Khepra sees reality as running in cycles, like Ra's daily birth. It's all about natural patterns that just keep repeating and evolving. The tree of life, the Paut Neteru, also works with cycles, but it's more structured. You got spheres interacting in a way that represents spiritual growth when you ascend, and worldly action when you descend, right? When you allow the lower part of when you allow actually it looks at the emotions, it looks at emotions and intelligence as something that, you choose how to act or how to express these things, right? You can choose to give into the emotions or to allow them to guide you, or to be inform you on how what is going on in a situation, not to guide you about how to go about doing a situation, right? So while both agree that cycles, are key, the tree of life turns it into formal spiritual practices, and Khepra is more tied to natural rhythms, right? Khepra uses symbols from nature like Ra and the dung beetle to represent ideas of transformation and renewal. The tree of life, it's more abstract, using archetypes like Asar to represent unity and Neteru for creativity. So Khepra is more connected with the natural world, while the tree of life is more psychological and metaphorical in its interpretations. Okay, boom, 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 boom. You said you cannot find it. Let me go back. Let me close the screen. I'm gonna close it so you can try to find it. I'm gonna present it so you can see what it is. Hold up. Do I even still have it open? Okay, let me close some things here. All right, I got it up. All right, here it goes. I am sharing it now. He could have taken it down. He definitely could have taken it down. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can find it now. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this. You can go ahead and just watch my process. So boom, boom, boom. All right, so there it goes. So you just go to academia.edu and it's right here. And it's still available. So I hope that helps, brother. Or I hope that helps. So, that's how you get it right there. You just download, you just click here. No thanks. I'll stay on the free tier. And it loads into your screen and it should come down. You can't see it, but it's right there. So hopefully that helps you. All right. I'm going to get back to the presentation, though. Hopefully I was able to help you out a bit. All right. So Khepra, like I said, Khepra is more connected to the natural world, while the tree of life, it's philosophical, psychological, metaphorical, right? So no problem. Light and love, peace and blessings. Khepra talks about Keperu, which means multiple forms emerging from a single unified source, right? Multiple forms coming from a single unified source. Diversity from unity, right? The tree of life does the same thing, but it's more organized into spheres that represent different aspects of the divine essence, right? They both talk about unity and diversity, but the tree of life, once again, is more structured in the way in which it's going about it, right? Khepra teaches us that speech and thought are tools of transformation, right? How our words and ideas can shape reality. In this view, right, speaking is a metaphor that brings forth change, right? It's manifestation. You know how they talk about manifestation. This is our speech, and our mind is our power of manifestation. That's our creative power, right? The tree of life with Yehuti and Sekert, it frames who speech has structured manifestation of the divine. So it is more structured, right? And it links speech to wisdom and power. And then it talks about the cosmic importance of what we say and how we say it. It's basically the same thing, though. It really is kind of the same thing. Both Khepra and the tree of life value speech as a force of creation, but the approach may be different, like basically two different schools of metaphysical thought, but they're both dealing with the metaphysics. There needs to be another name instead of metaphysics. It needs to be something that talks about holy physics, something like holy physics, like everything is holistic, like holistic physics or something. Not metaphysics, but holy physics. I think that's a thing, holy physics. I'm gonna start saying that. Together they talk. Together, they remind us that our words are more than sounds. They have the power of transformation. Words have the power of transformation. That's what it's talking about. That's what it wants to get. So Khepra tells us that speech and thought are tools of transformation, and it reflects how our words shape reality. The tree of life positions speech as a divine action linked to the sphere of Jehuti, wisdom, and Sekhet, right, which is power, right? And then it highlights the structural importance of speech within a sacred framework, right? There's a sacred framework that's going on here, right? And although both traditions, take speech as a powerful creative force, Khepra does so through like the metaphors, while the Tree of Life provides a more systematic approach to this reality. Khepra presents archetypal seed of transformation, right? It's talking about the infinite potential that exists. It's the boundless creative energy, right? And then when you look at the difference, the Tree of Life embodies the archetypes in specific spheres such as Asar and Neteru, and then it guides creation and behavior in a very detailed and structured manner. And then one thing that we can definitely say about Kemetic society is it was detailed and structured. I don't think anybody could really argue against that. The Kemites were detailed. The Kemites were very structured. You can't really have a civilization that is not detailed and not structured. Bureaucracy is something that emerges with, human complexity. When we get to social complexity, that, it's definitely bureaucracy. All right, so both traditions talk about the importance of archetypes, though. Khepra focuses on universal potential inherent in every seed, where Tree of Life details distinct qualities that shape and influence our world, right? So, like Khepra, with Khepra, creation is self-motivated, a self-aware process, illustrated by Ra's journey as a metaphor of continual renewal. The Tree of Life is a map of self-awareness in specific spheres like Asar, which symbolizes like divine unity, and Tehuti, which represents wisdom. The approach is different, but Khepra relies on metaphorical narratives, and the Tree of Life offers a structural framework. That's the difference, right? But both traditions emphasize the role of self-awareness, understanding, and guiding the creative process. And to tell you the truth, both traditions can exist simultaneously. That would be African, that would be Kemetic, that would be indigenous, that would be melanated. To not have one tradition over the other, even inside the paper itself, there is no hierarchical way of approaching, spiritual development. The paper itself goes against one of the arguments made by people that use the paper, because it would suggest that there is a freedom to the approach of spiritual development, because all things are interconnected. It's just your perception is limited by your understanding, which is just life itself. All of our perceptions are limited by our understanding. You know what I'm saying? Your perception of what it means to be with a mate is limited by how many mates you've been with. And after you've been around the block a few times, you have a good understanding of the cycles that you are dealing with when you deal with a mate. You know what I'm saying? When you deal with relationships, your energies, your thoughts, your emotions, and you're like, oh, I've been through this before, right? So perception is always informed by intelligence. Anyway, Khepra, right? Khepra, it talks about transformation, right? Has a mixture of intellect, emotions, and visions. right? And the tree of life describes it as creation as descending through a series of spheres, an emanation process from the metaphysical down to the physical. And it's a structured pathway, right? Each system takes a different approach, but they both highlight a journey from the intangible to the tangible. Holy physics. I got to write that down before I forget that. Holy physics. Not metaphysics, but holy physics. I'm going to coin that. All right. If y'all hear anybody else on any other channel talk about holy physics, know that it was here first. Because people be stealing stuff. I had the Jesus Wars a long time ago and people took that joint. I don't really talk about that stuff. I don't really focus on that, but that's what goes on. You know, intellectual property doesn't really exist in the social media space. Anyway, so with Khepra, archetypes have the seed of all potential, right? It represents undifferentiated source of creation, right? The tree of life, though, defines archetypes through faculties of the self, such as Asar and Jehudi and Neteru. You know, Asar, which represents divine unity, Jehudi, which represents wisdom, and Neteru, which is like joy, beauty, symmetry, right? And then both traditions acknowledge archetypes. Khepra talks about their universal unformed nature, whereas the tree of life has them more into distinct functional aspects of creation. With Khepra, transformation is perpetual, cyclical. It's perpetual and cyclical, right? The tree of life talks about transformation, but it's transformation through the dynamic interaction of spheres, right? That sustain creation with their ongoing constant interaction with one another, right? So Khepra is more of an organic cycle. Once again, the tree of life is more structured, right? Boom, 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 boom. With Khepra, nature, there's an intelligence that's embodied inside of nature, right? Emphasizing wisdom is inherent in nature, right? The tree of life also says that nature is a reflection of divine intelligence, right? Both traditions talk about the presence of intelligence in nature. There's an intelligence inside nature, right? Khepra presents it as organic. The tree of life has it more structured, right? Khepra is the concept of the eternal cycle. With Ra's daily birth, we see it every day. And the tree of life acknowledges the cycle, but puts them in the process of spiritual ascent, so to speak. And both traditions embrace cyclical renewal. Both traditions talk about cyclical renewal, but the tree of life always has more structure, whereas Khepra seems to be more natural, right? With Khepra, all forms emanate from the one. With tree of life, also all forms emanate from Amen. And then both traditions talk about unity. You know, Khepra is an ever unfolding transformation, whereas the tree of life organizes it into a systemic framework. Khepra teaches that intelligence is a universal force that's present in all forms, right? That it's inherent, it talks about intelligence is inherent and permeates existence, right? The tree of life assigns intelligence to Jehudi, but each sphere also has its intelligence that guides creation and human behavior, right? Through wisdom and divine order. Both traditions recognize intelligence as fundamental to creation. Khepra presents intelligence as fundamental to creation and presents as omnipresent, while the tree of life have it structured within a framework. But through the connections, we see that intelligence is connected to every other thing. Khepra is validated with our observation of nature, and it also demonstrates, right, intelligence in the natural world. The tree of life adapts the ancient spiritual practices, you know, and it provides a framework and a structured approach to integrating, you know, ancient wisdom into our life. Both of these systems, though, both concepts, um bridge ancient understanding with present day relevance. Let me see. I already kind of spoke about that. Okay. Then what I ended up doing also was taking the Menphite theology and comparing it with the Khepra joint, right? The Menphite theology presents Ptah as the embodiment of thought and speech, right? So in the Menphite theology, the creator is Ptah. There is a creator in the Menphite theology, right? And both traditions highlight consciousness as a creative force, but the Menphite theology focuses on structured role of intellect and speech and bringing forth existence, right? Once again, we know that Khepra talks about cycles, but Ptah is methodological in its in the creative process, right? It's very structured in how things are created. It is very emanational in how creation is created, right? The Menphite theology integrates a structured creation with cyclical evolution. No doubt, fam. So once again, Khepra talks about, we know that Khepra uses Ra, has a consistent transformational process. But the Menphite theology talks about Ptah unifying his mind and his heart, his mind and his emotions in order to bring forth creation, right? So, the emotions play an intricate, deep role in creation as well. But there's a difference. There is an emanationist type of system. There is the creator that was there first. Ptah is the demiurge in this. When you hear such things as the demiurge, the Menphite theology takes that there, right? And the Menphite theology is very structured and deliberate, right? So with the Menphite theology, Ptah manifestation of God's through speech, talks about the concept of unity inside plurality. The divine forces come from the central creative principle, right? The Menphite theology is more like it has a more feel of the Paut Neteru theology with inside of it. So we can we can consider the Khepra theology to be a school of thought, like Heliopolis or Hermopolis and the Menphite theology. And then we would have Khepra theology, the Khepra school of thought, right? So the Menphite theology gives creation to Ptah, who speaks the world into being. This is the logos comes from the who. The Stoics, the ancient Greek philosophers, they got the concept of the logos, the divine creative power of creation, from the Menphite priests. The logos is the who of the Menphite theology. Plato's forms is Ptah's sia of the Menphite theology. The sia and the who, the forms and creative utterance, brings forth creation, right? That's the one thing, right? So the Menphite theology acknowledges, the pre-existence of Noon, but frames creation as an act of shaping the primordial elements. So Ptah, the demiurge, shapes creation, by bringing it forth from the mind. Ptah is mind. In the Hermetic principle that all is mind, it comes from the Menphite theology. Is an ancient African principle. Menphite theology. When we're looking at the the Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic principles, the concept of duality, all things have gender, polarity, duality, gender, mind, cause and effect, something I forget the others, but that's taken from the Menphite theology, or aspects of it at the very least is taken from the Menphite theology. So, and it describes in the Menphite theology, Ptah thinks of the archetypes before their manifestation. The gods are inside the mind of Ptah, like Plato's forms, right? And then the gods go and manifest inside towns, inside inside towns, people, temples, and then rocks in the water. It's, which is an indication that creation is inherent. The creative force is inherent inside creation itself. The Menphite theology integrates thought and action. It integrates thought and emotion. The Menphite theology integrates thought and emotion in order to create creation, right? There's a self-aware approach to creation, right? In both traditions, the Khepra tradition and the Menphite theology, there's a self-generated process. There is a concept that creation itself is inherent inside, or the creative process is inherent inside creation itself, right? Paut shapes reality through abstract thoughts and words. Both traditions talk about the seamless transition from the wholly physical to the physical, right? Khepra highlights the interplay of internal faculties, and the Menphite theology structures this process. So the Menphite theology is a structured approach. So, once again, thoughts and words give rise to the gods, to the archetypes that manifest as gods, people, and cosmic elements, right? Creation and divine intellect. Creation occurs through divine intellect, speech, and because it comes from the heart, it also indicates the emotions, right? So the archetypes come from thought, emotions, and speech. Paut's act of creation is continuous. There's a continuous spoken word that is constantly engaged in creation. So creation is a continuous process with the Menphite theology. Speech is vibration. So we can conceptualize Paut's speech has the vibratory word that went out to create creation, right? That's one thing we can also do. So that's my take on everything. There we go. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. That was something I've had, up for a minute. I just didn't do it as a presentation. So I hope it was cool. Comment on it, and then I got you can see where you can get the paper, and then have a discussion, read it, enjoy it yourself. Truth, light, love, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Peace and blessings, everybody. I'm out.